You know, Sean, you gained experience in so many different careers, like transfer pricing, business valuation, and marketing. How do you know when it's a role is right for you, and how do you know when it's right for you to leave and move on to the next role?
Good question, Cynthia. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me contribute a chapter to your book. It was an honor, and it was a bit cathartic to write. I don't you don't go about your life thinking you have a strategy all along, and then this writing the
Hmm.
chapter for your book was like a good exercise to go back in time over the course of 13, 15 years and say, all right, what did I do here? Like, what was the strategy and stuff like that? So sometimes the strategy kind of revealed itself as I was writing the chapter for your book. And I'm like, oh yeah, I actually did have a rhyme or reason to this. But to answer your question more directly, how do you know if a role is right for you and it's time to make a move, or if a role is not right for you? I think it's obviously a gut feeling. The one thing I'll say is when you are looking at a certain role and you're like, okay, do I want to do that? I think one of the reasons you see in the chapter that I contributed, a lot of these transitions from one role to another took 18 to 24 months. And I think one of the big reasons is because the first 3 to 6 months is just me determining whether or not the risk of transferring to another group or another department is worth the reward of that other department. So the first 3 to 6 months is just figuring out, like, is this worth it? Like, do I really want to do this? Because I'm about to commit to this transition. I may run the risk of burning some bridges, run the risk of damaging some relationships. So I need to make sure that this risk is worth it. And I think in the first 3 to 6 months, you start to get an idea like, okay, if I'm randomly stuck in traffic and I'm thinking about this opportunity and I'm thinking about this role, if I'm laying up, if I'm in bed with my eyes open thinking about this, it's like, all right, then obviously there's something there. What I will say is there's been other opportunities arose that have arisen throughout my career that I got really excited about, and then a month or two into pursuing them as opportunities or possibilities, I realized, like, all right, my heart really isn't in it, or this is just going to be the same circus, different clowns. Like, I'm not really all that excited about it anymore, and that's why I think, like, whether you know or you don't, I think it's really important to give yourself that 3 to 6 month timeline to say, before I go pursuing this other opportunity, it's really important to figure out if this is worth it, like, and if this is something that I really want to do.
Mhm.
Um, that said, each one of those leaps that I had within KPMG, I had 4 different careers within KPMG. I think one of the most important parts was identifying coaches up front in the next role,
Mhm.
to talk to them very candidly and say, and I think I wrote about this in one of the sections of my chapter. It was like, I am I right for them and are they right for me? Like, the only way I can really figure that out is to create some relationships in that new role, create some allies, and ask them outright some of those scoping questions of, like, I, well, how cool would it be if I worked for you guys? Like, what would that look like? Right. And at some of those open ended questions. Because if they're like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, do you have any interest? Like, if they don't seem excited about the idea of me working with them, then that's usually a good indicator that I either need to have some rebranding I still have to do, or maybe that this isn't the right opportunity right now.
So when you talk about 18 to 24 months, sort of as you pivot to some of the areas, can you elaborate on the process and why it took so long to pivot? You're talking about 6 months to kind of set the stage, but
Hmm.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah, because it does. It takes a while because you want to make sure that, I think the number one rule I talked about a couple of times in my chapter was, like, you want to make sure that you're running towards the next opportunity, not running away from your existing department. And so for those of you who are joining who haven't had a chance to read the chapter, my chapter in Cynthia's book was all about how I had transitioned, really had 4 different careers during my time at KPMG, and how I was able to sort of navigate that without burning bridges and without having to move down to move over. And those different careers were transfer pricing, which was more international tax, business valuation, and then marketing, which is totally unrelated from those two, and then
Mhm.
ultimately sales. And that route was very circuitous, and it was all over the place. but the strategy to move around within a large organization without burning bridges is really difficult. And that's what that 18 to 24 month window looks like. That first transition from transfer pricing to business valuation, I was really young, early in my career. I was only a couple of years into my career. So I hadn't yet built any type of brand where people were like, well, that's Sean, that's Sean. Let's not mess with him. Like, he's really important to the firm. Like, I was still, for all intents and purposes, a nobody. So it was really important that if I was making that transition, I needed a little bit of a longer runway there, just because I had to spend a lot of time building up what that business case was going to be. That said, going from transfer pricing to business valuation at KPMG is still under the same umbrella. So it was more like, hey, I was hired, and that was the tough part. It's like I was hired to do transfer pricing. I wasn't hired to do anything else. So all I was asking to do really in that 18 to 24 month window is like, let ask them to let me to do other projects, not just the one vocation that I was hired to do. And that was a little bit easier because I was, only there for a couple of years. But as we got towards the end and I was looking to move out of marketing into sales, that was different. Like, that is a full career switch, totally different set of stakeholders and decision makers. That was much more sort of cut and dry. I'm going from one department to a totally different department. The first one was a little bit easier. Luckily, I was early enough in my career that it wasn't the end of the world. But that 18 to 24 months, it looked different for each one, and that's kind of what the chapter is about.
So when you were thinking about moving into those three other areas, which we talked about, transfer pricing, business valuation, marketing, and then into sales, did you receive any pushback from any of the partners as you talked about why you wanted to go move forward? Did anybody push back that you had to defend your sort of strategy or your business case?
Just like every time, it's just like every single time. I mean, it's a great culture. So that's the thing. I'm so open about talking about my time at KPMG because I really don't have anything negative to say. It is a phenomenal culture. It was the right place for me. But individuals are individuals. They have egos attached to certain things. So I would say the first one, there was pushback because I was hired to do transfer pricing and now I wanted to do other things. And the person that hired me is a wonderful person. I still think the world of this person. But again, like, the economy sucked. There was hiring freezes across the board. No one was getting raises. No one was getting bonuses. This guy stuck his neck out for me. And now within 2 years, I'm already raising my hand and say I wanted to do something else and not work for you anymore. Like, there's obviously some ego at play there. So that one was a little bit difficult because um, I was maybe a little too strategic in that one, and I let a little bit too much time pass to the point that the rumor mill got to him before I got to him, and that's a tough position to be in because now you're sort of on
Right.
the defense. He called me into his office. That's a different approach, and so for that one, I was ready for the discussion. I just hadn't yet had it, and that one was a little tough because there are emotions at play, and so I think one of the things looking back I was, kind of proud of myself to do, which is not raise my tone and my emotion to match his, but to stay very matter of fact, very 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 calm, and just very professional in my responses. But with that one in particular, I assured him that, like, hey, the reason the rumor mill got to you before me is because I don't have a plan. Like, there was no plan here. This is me just talking and trying to figure out my way here. If I had a plan and I was like, hey, this is what I want to do, and I'm 100% sure of it, I would have brought it to you. But I was just talking to friends and seeing if this is something that I want to do. The lesson that I pulled away from that experience was to make sure that in that discussion, I I encourage everybody when I talk about this transition is to make sure it's always about the work. So it was the work that's pulling me. It's the work going from transfer pricing to business valuation. The business valuation, the work that they're doing, I think I'm really interested in the work, and I feel like the time that I'm doing projects with them, I enjoy that work, and I really like that work. When you make it about the work, it's the one thing nobody can really control and they can't manipulate that, and they can get their feelings hurt, but they can't really say, oh, what, you don't want to work with me? Like, oh, you don't like our team? You don't like our culture? Like, it's hard to pin it on me as long as I deflect all of that and say, no, I love working with you guys. I love our clients. I love our culture. And I'm not saying I love them even more. I'm just saying the work seems to be calling me towards it. And as long as you make it about the work, then they can't, that's the one thing they can't really control. They'll still, feelings will get hurt and emotions will get high at that particular meeting. But as long as you keep it about the work and do not say anything negative about your current position, again, back to the idea of like, you're always running, you're running towards the next thing. They're pulling you versus you pushing away. That's the most important part. The last thing I'll say, and I'll focus again on that first transition, was the reason it took so long, and the reason the rumor mill got to him before me, before I could get to him, was because I was really focused on building relationships in that other group and trying to find some coaches, some mentors, some people at some higher levels in that other
Mhm.
group to sort of pressure test, like I said in the beginning. What would it be like? Has anyone ever transitioned from my group to your group? What did that look like? What were their hurdles? What were some of the challenges that they had? Are there any? What do I have to learn? Like, what should I know before I make that transition? So you're putting together a knowledge plan. You're starting to sort of infiltrate that group socially, get them into the mindset of like, what if Sean moved over? And if that's all positive and they seem excited, it seems possible. The knowledge plan is absolutely doable. Like, as long as that's all there, then I have a little bit more confidence having that conversation. I will say, last thing about this is that moving from valuation over to marketing, that was a totally different type of pushback, because the director of marketing, who I wish could be here, is one of my best friends still, he wanted me over there. He was like, "Let's go. I will do everything to make this happen." It was his idea, so I didn't have to convince him at all. There was none of that. Like, it was his plan, it was his idea to move me over there. Then the pushback came from sort of the national marketing team, who's going, "What? This guy has no marketing experience, and he wants to be a manager? That requires like 8 to 10 years of experience in marketing. He has exactly zero." So that was a totally different side of the brain I had to use to try to sell that transition.